Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Reading the Red. This bright Thursday morning, beautiful blue sky out there today, nice and crisp, and it still feels like Christmas. Matthew chapter 15, verse 34. Jesus continues the second revelation of regarding feeding the multitudes, and in 34, having had the disciples say to him, where are we going to get something to sustain such a large crowd in this desolate place? Basically, how are we going to feed all of these people, Jesus? What do you mean? How can we move in this way? And they seem to forget about the previous miracle of feeding the 5,000. In 34 it says, and Jesus said to them, how many loaves do you have? And they said, 7 and a few small fish. So Jesus says to them, how many loaves do you have? Meaning, what do you have that's going to meet the people's needs? What can you contribute to this process? And this miracle that Jesus does in this desolate place, in serving so many people at one time in a practical way, is another illustration of God's miraculous capabilities. Some people say God is a miraculous God, and then they put a limit on his ability. Like, for example, when they talk about Jesus moving the mountains, that story that when Jesus says, you know, if you've got faith for a grain of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, be cast into the sea. And some people say, oh, that mountain doesn't mean a mountain. It means just a kind of a problem that you might have in your life. But the fact is that if God can move a problem in your life, then God can move a mountain in your life. And if God can feed, as it were, one person, then God can feed 5,000 people, 4,000 people. God can do actually anything. And this sense of somehow seeing God in this limited way is a wrong perspective for us as Christians. We mustn't put boxes around the confidence we have in God's ability to meet people's needs. You know, God can change a circumstance just like that. He can make the world stop still just like that. Now, you might not see that and perceive that in your natural considerations, but the reality is God, if he's God, then he can do all things, everything. And here in this situation, he says to them, what do you have to contribute to meeting this need? And often God will take from us a contribution as it relates to what we have. He said to Moses, what have you got in your hand? He said, a stick. He said, then you're going to be a shepherd. And there's a sense in which Jesus is saying to the disciples, what do you have to contribute? Because I'm going to use already what I've provided and I'm going to multiply it. Now, if they had nothing, could he have made something in order to be able to feed the needs of the people? I believe that God can do all things. So yes, God could have made whatever he needed in order to make what was made. But he used what was provided. And often you see that in scriptures. The Bible says that the leaves of the trees are here for the healing of the nations. And if you look at most medicine comes from the leaves and the vegetations of the earth. First of all, maybe they're synthetic now, but in the early days they came from the seed of the trees and that sense of fruit from the trees. Jesus says to them, what have you got that we can use to make this need go away? Brothers and sisters, don't ever be afraid to believe in a good God who has a great capability. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.